You're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio podcast. We want to bring the Clayton Clark, Christie sides, Indiana Fever. We want to take a look at the coaching and try to get an understanding because I know Caitlin Clark started off not having a good start in her WNBA career, and there's multiple factors to that. And as I look at it, take a deeper dive, try to understand what's really going on with the Indiana Fever after getting blown out at home in a home opener against New York Liberty, and it really wasn't close. They really got, as she said, punched in the mouth. They got beat up. But some of this got to fall back in the coaching arena, and we got to understand when you look at the coaching, how is it coming across? And I know because with Coach Sides here and with the Fever, I mean, we are already come off a 20-game losing streak. So obviously, there's not too much that we haven't seen, and we're just going to repeat the performance. The only difference is you have Caitlin Clark, who is a phenomenal player, is really a shooter, not necessarily a scorer, and at the same time, just getting set up in just a horrible position. Now we've heard some talk about Lisa Bluter. Obviously, Lisa Bluter's a great coach, and you got to look at this because in the WNBA, you got to understand 12 franchises, 12 coaches. You got 300 teams in college basketball. So if I had to look at it collectively and say, are there better coaches in college basketball than the WNBA? I'd say yes. Are all those coaches in college willing to come over? Well, that's potentially could happen with the WNBA expansion. But when you look at this collectively and you start looking at the Indiana Fever, and I started walking down through the list and I looked, I said, okay, let's look at the stats. Is there anybody? I mean, Indiana Fever don't have one player, whether it's points, blocks, three pointers, rebounds, steals, free throws, assists, doesn't really matter. They don't even have one player that's actually playing up to the standard. Normally you have teams who they'll get beat up, but then at the somewhere along the line, they're gonna have one or two players that are gonna step up and not allow this to happen. So this is something that's going on that really puzzled me. And I said, hey, I got to take a deeper dive and try to understand because you got Caitlin Clark and everybody's looking at the struggle, what's going on. Well, you've got a point guard who has played point guard in college. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that will be her role. If you ask me, in my opinion, I think she's better suited to play the shooting guard or the combo guard. Really, I don't think that the point guard is too much usage. But when you look at this collectively, you've got to say, well, it really doesn't matter. There's point at every position. You could run it as a point five. You could do like the Warriors do, run it as a point four with Draymond Green. You could run it as a point three with Kevin Durant. So the being the point guard and the media shift on and off the ball, that really doesn't matter as long as the players get to their location. And to watch her get in these struggle points, and it's almost like with Christie sides that, are you leading her down this path intentionally? As moments sometimes coaches want to break a player, have them go through the failure, tear them down, rebuild them up. And in this process, I've listened to the press conferences, I've heard Caitlin Clark speak. Man, she is highly intelligent. In fact, she could coach the team. Okay, so when you talk about coaching a player, I don't think that's it. I think you got a deeper dive here. I think you got some things that are being done that Caitlin Clark is just not really there with. And when I look at it, folks, and I'm going to break this down a little bit and let you kind of see it, and you tell me because here's Caitlin, and I'll show you the spots and why I think something's up here because this doesn't make sense. And when you're in the WNBA and I'm hearing Coach Christie Sides talk about practice, trying to get things together, well, these girls, there's 144 players in the WNBA, and I believe they all are professionals, and practice is not going to change the standard routine and standard scheme of how you play the game of basketball. So here's what I want to show you. If you look at Caitlin Clark here, and we kind of get into it, and she
Yeah.
starts moving, and you start seeing how she's going to move with the basketball. If you look at the spot, okay, and this is where I get kind of confused because here we got a post player, so you're running right into the defense. Post player, you just got to release out. Here we're late. We don't have a line of sight from here. So when I look at this player here, And I'm looking at spacing as you dribble drive and these turnovers create. These ladies have to have the movement, and I've heard time and time again Coach Bruder talk about we got to get her to take the long two. Folks, can I share something with you, and especially as the WNBA, which is equivalent as to the NBA. In the NBA, the worst shot you could take is a long two-pointer. You ask any NBA GM, they're going to tell you, if you got a foot on the line and make the shot, that's a bad shot, okay? You get your spacing. If you're that close to the three-point line, get behind it and make the shot. Now, this turnover happens as you watch. She'll go right in there, and she's going to run it, and there it is, okay? But look at her line of sight. This player's here. This player should be here. This player rotates over, and you got the space, you got the corner, you got the shot. But that's not Caitlin Clark's fault. That's Christie Side's fault, and that's coaching. That's coaching right there. So if you walk through this and you see, here we go again, okay? Look at what we're asking. We're throwing a pass, literally, okay? Literally from all the way outside your law, 40 feet from the bucket, okay? You've got the defenders who are here who are stepped off, and there's four defenders surrounding this player. This ball should be reversed. We should have post-its into the block. Okay, we could have the player dive, take a dive. I mean, there's a million things you can do, but look what happens with this play. I mean, these are things that you just got to say to yourself, this is not Caitlin Clark, okay? Now look at this. Here's what we got. Here's what we got, folks. I want you to really understand what you got, okay? Because when you look at this, she picks up the basketball here. We got a player. We got a trap coming. That ball should reverse. We should be post up in the block, and we're not there. And what you do is you just turn that ball back over again, which really doesn't make any sense. And when you break this down on film, I'm like, what are we doing? Okay, because we're throwing the ball back into the court. Now, look at these other players here who are not even in position. And this is where I go to Christie Sides. This is not going to change. If Caitlin Clark, one, you got to have a player in line of sight. And let's run through this a little more because this one here has really got me. Now we got a designated break. Okay, and if you're talking about coaching and you're going to look at this, you're going to look at the WNBA, you know, when you say, okay, she's got 10 turnovers, let's look at the offense and what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they're trying to execute it, and let's see if this makes sense. Okay, because here we go. We're going to break down here. Now, here comes the run and jump. You can call it the run and jump, the blitz. You call it whatever you want to call it. But if the other players are not in the line of sight, folks, what that means is if the point guard or the combo guard or whoever's handling the basketball, if you see they're running a double, you got to get in line of sight. Okay, let's just watch how this plays develop. This is where I'm going, man. Either in the WNBA, there's better college coaches out there that can come in here and tighten this game up because the WNBA is looking to go to the next level. And the only way you're going to go to the next level, you got to have next level coaching. And so let's take a look here and see just what it does. Okay, so we got a player here. Okay, we got the defenders here. We see the defender behind. This one here should be flat. Okay, this player here can flatten out a little bit more. So if the ball does get reversed here, that ball can go to the corner and down to the post right in here. But none of that's happening. We're skipping that, and look what happens here. So we're going to run it. Boom, here we go right there. And all of a sudden, here we go. We got a turnover. Okay, these things are not supposed to happen. This is the WNBA, and this, and you can see as they're breaking it down, this should not happen, folks. And I'm a little confused. And the reason I'm a little confused, and I'll take you to this one, and this one really confused me because when I look at players, and folks, I've had an opportunity to coach women in grassroots. I get it. I get their reactions. I get their emotions. I get it when there's a problem because they have tails. It's almost like playing a poker game. Now, this, I'm going to let you listen to Caitlin Clark talk about her coach and the weirdest reaction that I've seen in a long time out of a player. So in the media, if I'm covering the NFL, if I'm in the NFL locker room and I hear a player say something, I'm looking at what kind of reaction. Take a look at this reaction that she gives after she talks about coach. It's almost like she's saying, I was forced to say that. Take a listen, folks. This is just shocking to me. I haven't seen anything like this in a while.
Hey, over here. Christie said that she felt like you guys got punched in the mouth early on. I guess, Caitlin, do you agree with that assessment of, the start?
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with Coach. I didn't think we came out and I thought our first couple possessions were okay, and then they kind of went on a run and we really struggled to score. We didn't really get into much. So I would agree with Coach for sure.
Front row.
There it is. Take a look at that reaction, folks. And I'm telling you, that's a weird one to me, only because if you notice after she talks about it, she takes her entire hand and just leans back like reserves to say, I didn't want to say that. Okay. And it's shocking because that tells me something's going on, but this is as real as it gets. Look at that. I mean, after she says it, that's her reaction. That's not good. And this thing here, what you got, folks, I can just kind of lean it in and tell you, you got Caitlin Clark. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Okay, college player of the year, coming in, wanting to be the face of the game. Here's the deal: when you get into offenses and you're coaching, Caitlin Clark's a great player, but she needs to be in an offense like the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr, where you got constant motion, the players are moving, the offense is rotating. You're not going to be able to come into the WNBA and all of a sudden say, okay, Caitlin Clark, I know you didn't run it in college, but I want you to run the two-man game, and we're going to get you ISO'd up, pick and pop with the post. That's a fantasy, folks. And you got to look at also another team would be the San Antonio Spurs, where you got Greg Popovich that runs an offense, the motion, players have isolation. Players got to get to the spots. So when you talk about what's going on and you bring me back to Lisa Bluder, okay, Lisa Bluder's not going to have a challenge getting these players to their spots. There's no way you should go out there and get blown out, okay, in a home opener because your players are not able to execute an offense. But before the players can execute an offense, Coach Christie sides of the Indiana Fever has to put an offense in. And you can't be saying you need practice. And here's what concerned me when I started researching it, folks. We understand that things do happen. Well, when you come off a 20-game losing streak, and this might be the blind leading the blind, I kind of got a feeling the Indiana Fever, they don't have any, they're not optimistic about retaining Christie sides, the coach, Caitlin Clark. And if that's the case, then you're just going to see the meltdown that's going to get worse because the players, by the time I move you over to the other side of coaching and we look at the defensive rotations, you look at the defensive rotations of the New York Liberty and you look at the defensive rotations of the Indiana Fever, you're going to see the Fever are way out of position of where they should be, and the players are not reacting. And if you have a voice, it may be the players have heard that voice for too long. That does happen. I mean, it's happened to the best of them. It happens to NBA coaches. However, when the players are not responding and doing their job, okay, when I say doing their job, I mean the players know defense. The players know offense. You can just go with a basic set. There's nothing that practice is going to change the execution. And that's what concerns me because you could practice all you want. But if it's like golf, if you don't, you could swing and hit as many balls you want. But if you don't have the right swing, the right technique, you don't have the backswing going, folks, you're not going to hit the ball, and it's going to get embarrassing. And I don't hope the Indiana Fever are not looking to do another 20-game losing streak. And here's why: you got national TV is tuned in, you got the sellout crowds in every arena. Okay, you got sellout at home, and if this is the case, Christie sides, head coach Indiana Fever, needs to put a product on the floor. I mean, even taking Caitlin Clark off the Indiana Fever, the question still would be, can Christie sides put a team on the floor that can execute and win? I don't believe so because what you've shown me so far that you are not capable of doing this. And folks, when you get to coaching at this level, and I'll tell you, it doesn't matter if you're in the NBA or the NFL, if you can't coach, you can't coach. Okay. And that's the bottom line. Now, I don't know Christie sides if she's got championships or national championships or done something here, But when you get a high-profile player, okay, and you already have another high-profile player and the post player on the team, and you can't get that to execute, it's time to make a change. And change is good. Not the change can be very destructive. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. We are powered up by fanatics. We always tell you all things are possible to those who believe, and we want to get better and better so you can go higher and higher. And the only way that's going to happen for Clayton Clark is they're going to have to bring somebody in, a consultant or somebody to help Christie Sides put the right system in for the players she has. And we don't mind if the Indiana Fever lose, but you have to be able to compete. And if you can't compete in the WNBA, then the WNBA as a coach is probably not the job for you. And that's where we're going to leave it. We'll keep you up to date, and we'll see you soon. Once again, Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast, powered up by fanatics. All things are possible to those who believe.